Hi, everybody. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. I do have a few little reminders to start. Please sign up for Basecamp if you haven't already, and feel free to share the Basecamp invitations with colleagues. This is where we post the webinars, the meeting notes, and other helpful materials and documents about telegenetics. If you've not received an invitation to Basecamp or have any questions, feel free to contact me or the NYMAC staff. Today we're going to be talking about telegenetics training for students and for providers. Our speakers both have vast experience in telegenetics training. Sylvia Mann is the project director for the Western State Genetic Service Collaborative. She's a genetic counselor and has been the Hawaii State Genetics Coordinator since the genetics program started within the Department of Health in 1993. She's been a leader in the development and execution of telegenetics training for providers. And Lori Williamson-Dean is the program manager for the Heartlands Genetic Service Collaborative. She's an assistant professor, program director, and chair of the Department of Genetic Counseling at the University of Arkansas. As usual, we encourage people to share their own experiences and ask lots of questions. We thank Sylvia and Lori for being here with us, and we look forward to talking with you.
So, Beth, to forward the slide. I don't think I have control.
To be able to use your down arrows, is it working? No?
Okay, no, it did. It worked.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Sylvia. So just an overview of what Laura and I will be discussing today, why we developed the telegenetics training, what training was developed, how we're improving the training, and the next steps for our telegenetics training. I think I went too fast. Okay, there we go. So why do the training? So when we first were looking at the landscape of genetics providers who practice telegenetics, we found that very few providers practice telegenetics. This was about probably 5 years ago. And most did not practice either during their training or during their current practice. So what Laura and I discussed was to encourage the use of telegenetics. We wanted to start by trying to train current trainees, geneticists that were in fellowships or genetic counselors that were in genetic counselor training, or new graduates that were less than 5 years from graduation. So we thought that if we did it this way, it would start them early in practice so that telegenetics would be a natural method of providing services and education. So it was just as normal to them as walking into a exam room or a office to provide services in person. Over time, when the training became more widely known about, we got a lot of requests from experienced providers who now were very interested in having telegenetics training. So we've evolved into basically training everybody. So how did we develop the training? One of the things that Lori and I both knew was that we did not know everything about telehealth. So we partnered with the HRSA Health Resources Services and Administration funded telehealth resource centers in South Central, that's at the University of Arkansas for the Heartlands, and the Southwest Telehealth Resource Center, which is at the University of Arizona in Tucson for the Western States Collaborative. So initially we had the South Central TRC online modules to use. They had developed these modules. They were going to let us use them, and they're very basic telegenetics, telehealth information. We were able to obtain CMEs and CEUs for the online modules, and then we also decided that we needed to do some in-person training to give them some more hands-on and do in-person training with the TRCs. And then we developed an evaluation tool for the trainees. Then, of course, we went out and we recruited trainees and new graduates, first from the Heartland and the Western States Regional Genetics Collaboratives. We basically told everyone we knew. We had some flyers at the ACMG annual meeting, and then we also emailed the genetic counselors in each of our regions. So this is the first group of trainees from Western states, and I think this is the trainees from the August last year for the Heartlands region. So you can see that there's a lot of genetic counselors in the Western states that were getting trained, and it's pretty normal because if you can see in the Heartlands one, Brad Schaefer, and he's a medical geneticist. So Heartlands is more set up to train the medical geneticists because they do the physical exam by telehealth. So what was the training? So we had 9 online modules that were completed before the in-person sessions. These were self-paced modules that were developed by the South Central TRC. They're general telehealth information, and they ran from 10 to 15 minutes each. Then when we first started, we had a 1-2-day in-person session, either in Arkansas for the Heartlands folks or in Arizona for the Western states trainees. We also had a joint session between the Arkansas and Arizona trainees that were part of the first day. That was challenging because we're on different time zones. And then the second day, we had a practical hands-on equipment and simulated video conferencing sessions. So the trainees got to actually play with the equipment, but also we had scenarios where they had simulated video conferencing sessions so they could see what it felt like to both be the provider on the telehealth session and be the family on the telehealth session. So the 9 modules covered, as I said, very basic telehealth. Introduction, telepresenting basics, technology, how to develop a project plan, introduction to mHealth, which is mobile health. And so that's doing telehealth using your mobile devices like your smartphone, licensing and credentialing, telehealth policy at the federal level, telehealth policy, Medicaid and Medicare, and then some legal issues about telehealth. So this is actually during the session. This one is in Arizona. And so the trainees who aren't doing the session are in the conference room, and we can see the simulated sessions going on in the telehealth clinic. And this is, the upper left is a picture of the joint session between the Arizona site and the Arkansas site. And you can see that the person who has the little thing that looks like the old-fashioned projector, that's actually a document reader so that you can show a document on the screen. That person is the one pretending to be the counselor, and then we have the other person who is pretending to be a patient. And one of the most shocking things the trainees have when they first start is seeing themselves on a 40 to 65-inch screen in high definition, but they can see themselves and they can see the patient. So what did the trainees think? So all the trainees reported a very positive experience with the training. Some wanted more hands-on time with equipment. Some wanted more question and answer time. All really found the simulated sessions helpful. I have to add that some of the trainees were a little resistant to doing simulated sessions because they felt a little awkward pretending on a big screen. But I have to say that as soon as they started, they really had a good time with it. We had one counselor that was extremely resistant to doing it, and once she started, she became super animated and really, really enjoyed the session doing it. Most report that they will use new skills and knowledge in the future. Lori, did you have anything to add about the trainees' experiences, especially in the Heartlands training?
Thank you, Sylvia. As far as their experiences, it was, consistent with the feedback that you received at the Western States trainings. What seems to be the most helpful is that time to practice, play with the equipment and then run through simulations. As Sylvia mentioned, we do both genetic counselor training in the Heartland region as well as the physician training. And so the physician training, it depends. We set up different scenarios depending on what the needs are. Sometimes physicians have come to the training along with the genetic counselor who will be working with them at the remote or at the distant site, the site with the patient. And they, I guess I used the wrong term there, but they will bring that person so that they can learn to work together where the physician's directing that exam. It's also, for some, not all of the physicians, it's been a matter of demonstrating that you really can conduct most aspects of what you need in a physical exam for a genetics patient, in this manner. In fact, one of the sessions is actually watching this be demonstrated by Dr. Schaefer and Shobana Kubindran, who's a genetic counselor in Wichita, and they actually bring in a patient and they run through with this patient what they, how they work. And so it really brings to life and makes it much more real and convincing, if you will, that this can be done, not for all, but for a vast majority of patients. So I think at this point, Sylvia, that's all I'll add. I'll have more to add about students later, but that's all for now.
Okay. So our training timeline. As most things that are first developed, we started out slow. Our first training, we had to schedule jointly. So our first training actually happened September of 2014. And then the second training didn't happen until almost a year later. We are trying to coordinate between our regional genetics collaborative schedules, our telehealth resource center schedules between 4 different sites, and then of course just everything else that everyone else was doing. So the second training didn't occur for almost a year, and of course during all of this we were trying to tweak and improve what we were doing in our training. Then it was decided that because of the difficulty of scheduling so many moving parts at the same time, we would not do the joint session during the training, and we would split out our sessions so that the Heartlands would do training themselves and the Western States would do training themselves, so that the Heartlands only had to work with the South Central Telehealth Resource Center for scheduling, and Western States would only have to work with the Southwest Telehealth Resource Center for scheduling. And even at that, it is still challenging because we are both two very busy federally funded entities doing a lot of other things. So it's still difficult for the scheduling, but we were able to schedule more training in August of 2016, and we were asked by Washington, who's in the Western States region, if we could actually bring the training to Washington State, because they had at least a dozen counselors that wanted the training. And when we talked to the Arizona people, we thought that would be much more cost effective if we could do that, because then we'd have to just travel the trainers and not all the trainees to Arizona, and that worked out really well. Western states had our most recent training in April, and Heartland's had their most recent training in May. One of the reasons why there's such a gap between the third and fourth training is during the third training, we realized that when you don't have control over the online module or the hosting, or basically any control at all or ownership, because we're relying on another entity to host it and to keep it up to date, it was very difficult to make sure that things went smoothly. We had a lot of problems with access and it working properly because it was moved to a new host and kept forgetting where the counselors or the geneticists had stopped the online module the last time they logged on, and so it was very difficult to go through that with the trainees. At that point, the Western States Collaborative decided that it would not be useful to keep relying on this model, so we decided that we would fund and develop our own online training modules instead of relying on the South Central modules. And so it took us from fall to about March of 2017 to redevelop all the modules, get them all set up, have them hosted, and have the voiceover done and everything. So that's why there was the gap. Otherwise, if we had the modules, we could have done training throughout that.
Mm-hmm. Sylvia, can you go back to that slide?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just wanted to comment. So the August 2016 bullet there for the third training. So Sylvia mentioned how Western states took the training on the road to Washington State. And independent of that, same thing happened in the Heartland region. We were invited to a telehealth regional meeting as a pre-conference workshop. And so we were able to take the training on the road to Nashville. And I think the reason why I'm mentioning that is because although Western states and Heartland we weren't conducting our trainings on the same days anymore because of the logistics which Sylvia had mentioned. I think what you see in this picture and what's illustrated by the points that we've made is just as this process has matured and as we have learned, we learn something every single time it's offered, then we're either asked to provide it in a different way or we find ways in which we can refine. And I'm very happy, I will add, that Western States has created the new module because we will probably be tapping into that. There were many bugs with the original one, and also we had learned enough that Western states could create that and put the genetics angle on it as well, which I think is really nice. And then our training, which is not on here because I couldn't figure out how to add it, as Sylvia mentioned, was just completed earlier this month. And again, was a mixture of physicians, nurse practitioners, dietitian, and genetic counselors. So I think all of our audiences have been kind of mixtures of people and at different stages of practice as well. Thank you.
So that's just a picture from our Washington training. This is to remind me that one of the things that's really necessary when you do go somewhere else for the training is making sure that they have the broadband internet capability and they have the space that you need. So it was really important in Washington State, we're at the health department, that they actually had the IT people on hand in case when we were playing with all the equipment that it wasn't connecting right. But luckily it worked out really well. The one thing that was interesting is if you notice the background of the back of this, if we were in Arizona at the Telehealth Resource Center, they're very set up to do telehealth. So they're very conscious of things like what the wall is painted, what color, what type of paint, whether it's glossy paint or matte paint, and also having the right signage up behind the person who is actually doing the telehealth session. So that's one of the things that is really difficult to replicate when you're on the road, because you can't really go run in and paint someone's wall or something like that. So it's not exactly the same experience that they would get if they went to an actual telehealth resource center, which is set up for optimal telehealth, but it is definitely still worth it, but you just have to make sure you talk about those things. They might not be able to visually see it, but you have to talk about those logistical issues when you do telehealth.
And Sylvia, I'll just add to that. I think that what this showed us with your experience in Washington and ours in Nashville is that, you know, yes, it may be less than ideal, but it can still be done, and it makes this training, then it gives more people access to it, and especially within the infrastructure of the regional genetics collaboratives. We basically, it was, you know, demonstrated proof that we could take this on the road, which I think was an important step for the development of the training.
So, improving our training. So, of course, as I said earlier, we did open the recruitment to experienced genetics providers. We decided that two of the things that we did during the two-day in-person session, we could actually move to do as webinars before the in-person session. So we took the panel of experienced telegenetics providers, where most of them were coming in through video conferencing during the in-person session, and we took the presentation about the business model of telehealth into webinars. So that made it much easier for us to reduce the in-person session to only one day instead of the 2 days. We know that genetics providers are very busy clinical providers, and so it's difficult to get 2 full days off of work plus any travel days you might have. So reducing it to a one-day in-person session would make it much easier for people to participate in the training. All the online sessions, the webinars, and the in-person session did receive CME and CEU approval, so that the trainees did receive continuing ed credit for participating in all parts of the training. So the one-day in-person agenda, this was our most recent one. We, of course, do a review and discussion of the online modules. There is a technology review that is done by our wonderful techie person, Janet Major, at our Telehealth Resource Center in Arizona. She talks about all the different really cool pieces of equipment that you can use for telehealth. We have telepresenting, which is done by a wonderful lady who runs the telehealth program in Arizona, telling you about what is the best thing for telepresenting, what kind of clothes you should wear. Big broad stripes, dangly earrings making a lot of noise are probably not the best things that you want to wear during your telehealth sessions. So just to help people understand that doing telehealth is easy, but there still are some things that you need to do or not do. And then, of course, our afternoon, we have our simulated sessions, and then we talk about our policy issues. So in the Western states, what we do is, depending on what states the trainees come from, we can talk more in depth about what the policy issues and the licensing, credentialing, reimbursement, all those other issues are within their state, which is a much more in-depth discussion than the general discussion that is presented during the online modules. Do you have anything to add for the in-person session, Lori?
No.
So, as I said, we developed, created, and implemented 10 new telegenetics training modules. There are now 10 because we have a telegenetics specific module. We were lucky to work with our University of Hawaii Distance Design and Consulting program. They actually design all the online learning for the university. We also received CEU approval for the modules. So this is a screenshot of what the starting page of the module looks like. They have each of the lessons in the left-hand menu. And then as you go through the modules, it keeps track of where you are in the which ones you've done, which ones you haven't done, so that you know where you are in the modules. This is just one of the screenshots of what it looks like within the module. This one is teaching you about what is on a telehealth cart. At the end of each module, there is a knowledge check. So there are some questions with multiple choice answers, and you choose your answer, and then I'll tell you whether you're correct or not. And if you're not correct, then you have an opportunity to choose another answer to see if that's a correct answer. And the module won't let you go on until you actually get all your answers correct. Evaluation. So of course evaluation is very important for us since we're federally funded, and we want to do better, of course. So we immediately have evaluation during the training, after the webinars, after the online modules, and after the in-person session. We also haven't launched this yet, but every 6 months we're going to be recontacting all our trainees and having them fill out an evaluation so we can see how they progressed in using telehealth in their practice. And so our next steps are to continue offering training at telehealth resource sites and on-site at different places, including in other regions, hopefully, depending on our funding. We currently have a listserv that allows the trainees that have gone through the program to ask questions, ask for more support, things like that. We are changing that into more of a bulletin board format so that it's easier for people to search on other people's questions and have a discussion for continued support after you finish the training. And then, of course, as I said, working with other regions to provide more training so that we can get genetics providers trained across the country. Do you want to talk a little bit about student training right now, Lori?
Sure. I just, it's nothing that is, has been formally created, but I wanted to share some of the talks we've been having about the needs for the genetic counseling programs and training students. I know this has been of interest of some of the RCs, and I just want to make a comment that that is something that's being discussed, as well as something that we provide here at UAMS. We're fortunate to be able to do that for the genetic counseling students as a part of our program. And the additional piece that we are also considering is this whole idea of supervision via using the telehealth, which is again something we do here at UAMS. And so I think within this next year, there will be more that you will begin to see about education, opportunities for regions, for training programs, and hopefully, I don't know that this part will happen within the next year, but also hopefully some more discussion at the level of the accrediting bodies for the genetic counseling training programs, because we believe this is a way to cost and time effectively insert this training, and capture those students in their program already. And so it's just in its infancy stages, but it is something we have years of experience doing here at UAMS, and I'm hopeful. I know this is something Sylvia's been interested in, and I hope it's something that we can move forward.
Great. And so, of course, we want to thank all our partners in Hawaii and in Heartland, and then, of course, our 2 telehealth resource centers, which we could not do this without our Southwest TRC in the University of Arizona, and then the South Central Telehealth Resource Center at the University of Arkansas. And then, of course, now we're working with the University of Hawaii Distance Course Design and Consulting program for our online module. So it's taking a lot of people, a lot of coordination, but in the end, I think the training is just getting better, and hopefully we'll be able to get it out there to more people so that genetics providers can use telegenetics and use it as a tool just as efficiently and easily as walking into a counseling office or an exam room.
That's right.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Okay. At this point, anyone that has questions can go ahead and type them into the question box as we usually do. I'll start with a question while we wait to see if other ones come in. I'm just wondering if either of you have really felt that as your students go out into the workforce, if there is really a demand for students to be trained in school with some of these experiences, and what are really the most critical skills that the employers are looking for?
Yeah, Sylvia, I can speak to that. So even before the Western States Collaborative and Heartland had created this curriculum, this module and curriculum for providers, here at UAMS, because they use telehealth, telemedicine for prenatal care here, and as well as the pediatric clinics that Dr. Schaefer has, our students were exposed to it just as a natural part of their training. And we definitely had students recruited specifically for that reason. We were not actually, it wasn't anything we had actually anticipated. That's probably short-sighted on my part, but there were employers who were specifically interested in our students and hired them because they knew they had this experience. They were planning to start, telehealth, or they had thought about it. And so, and actually one of our graduates, she not only graduated from the program, but then she took this course, and she did start telehealth in Mississippi. And so she's, definitely one of the success stories, but we've had more than just her who've been recruited specifically for that. And a little off topic, but I just want to add right now, another resource, if you're wanting to start a telehealth genetics clinic, we in the Heartland region had published a how-to guide. It's just a document that reviews some of the key things. Now it's not how-to in the sense of giving you the in-depth knowledge and, of course, the hands-on skills that the training provides, but it is a guide, and that is currently being updated and will be available early next month on our website. But as far as the students go, I cannot answer the second part of your question, which were the skills that the providers were specifically seeking. It seemed to be really general at that point, in that they had telehealth experience.
Yep, that's great. And I'll just add, we had currently shared with all of our community of practice members your previous version of your Heartland's how-to guide, so we'll make sure that we track that and take note of when it's updated and share the updated version.
And I will make sure we notify the regions. Thank you. Yes.
Great. Great. So yeah, I'm wondering if you can share with us, you mentioned, you know, that genetics providers just even seeing themselves on the screen was one of the most sort of useful things that people got out of it. But I'm wondering if you can share with us, for people that are already experienced providers who have maybe even done some telegenetics already, what do you feel like are the skills that they are picking up from these trainings that they're almost maybe surprised that they didn't know they didn't know?
So we have people that have done telegenetics in the past or currently are doing it. I think some of the most useful things are finding out, especially the telepresenting, they didn't really realize there was an etiquette to telehealth, and certain things that helped you do telehealth practice better. They love the tips that the Telehealth Resource Center staff give them since they've been doing telehealth for so long. They actually learn about different technology. A lot of them had never used the document reader. They learn about other ways of being able to make sure that they stay connected with the family while they're doing things like drawing a pedigree and showing other documentation. So there's all these other little peripheral things that they learn about that they weren't really doing that could improve their practice and also the relationship through telehealth with their clients on the other side. I think everybody that has done telegenetics and has come to the training has said that they've definitely learned a lot because they basically were thrown into it with no training and no idea. They just got stuck in front of their video camera, their video conferencing camera, and said, go ahead and do this.
We've had the same experience at the Heartland trainings. The first time we had an attendee who had telehealth experience, my initial thought was, why are they here? But then that individual said, oh my gosh, what she learned was about a lot of the policy information that she was going to take back to her institution. And then we've had, at our most recent training, one of the counselors who had been using telehealth, she specifically wanted to work and learn more from other counselors around psychosocial issue, attending to patients. And because at the end, she said she felt more validated, that she was doing things okay, but that was a worry of hers. And then like Sylvia said, it's etiquette. That's also one of our big takeaways for people with experience.
Right. Great. Other than your listserv or bulletin board that you guys make available, are there other ways that you recommend to people that go through training for them to really continue over time to stay up to date on evolving issues in telehealth and telemedicine?
Well, we recommend that they pay attention, they sign up for the American Telemedicine Association little bulletins that come out, because they range everything from new policies on reimbursement to information about these little niche programs that you could learn something from. So they send out quite a bit of information through the listserv, through their mailing list, their email list. Also, if you really want to get into telehealth, attending their annual conference is mind-blowing. There's so much going on in telehealth, and the exhibitors have so many new cool tools. Also, connecting with your telehealth resource center is always a good thing. Telehealth resource centers are like the regional genetics collaboratives. They're different. They don't all do the same thing, but they can point you in the right direction if there's something that they don't do that somebody else does at another resource center.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. We have a question here from someone else. It says, we have seen a lot of physicians and legal counsel starting to write textbooks on telehealth and telemedicine. Are you considering writing a book on telegenetics training via a textbook?
I would say, given our time constraints, Lori and I would not be writing a textbook.
That's why we both laughed. Also, I think it would be outdated.
It would.
By the time it was published. I think keeping the how-to guide, making sure you go to your TRC, and then, I completely trust Sylvia and Western States Genetics Collaborative. I mean, they've got, what looks like a fantastic module that covers all of the essential material, and that will be updated, and it will be targeted around genetics, and I would make those my go-to places.
I have to say that one of the reasons we're getting a lot of requests for training is that hospital systems are requiring all programs start using telehealth. So genetics is included in that, and we've had a lot of panic calls from institutions where they've been told that they have to start doing telehealth and they have no clue what they need to do or how to start it. And so it's actually being pushed at the institutional level or healthcare system level, and we don't even have to convince the genetic providers that they have to do it.
Right.
They have to do it.
Yep. And they need to know how. Yep. Makes sense. What is the best way for either students or providers to gain information about these telegenetics training opportunities? Is it mostly on your websites, or how else can people make sure they're hearing about upcoming opportunities?
You send out notices to your regional genetics collaborative, so it would be through NYMAC if you're a NYMAC.
And they can also email us directly.
Yeah, you can email us. It's on our website, but we always send out the notice to the other 6 regional genetics collaboratives.
We will have people email us, and at a time that perhaps we don't know we know we're going to have one in the spring, but we haven't set a date yet, and we keep their email inquiry. And if I know that Sylvia's having one, we'll direct them her way. I mean, we just try to keep in communication with one another, and so that everyone receives the training that they need.
Mm-hmm. That's great. All right. Do either of you have any sort of last-minute tips for us before we sign off?
Nope, I just hope more people do telegenetics.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity you've given us. I appreciate Sylvia taking the lead on the talk, and I just thankful for the opportunity to disseminate more information about the training, and not just the training, but just that these tools and resources are available. So I appreciate that opportunity.
Yep. Great. Well, if there's no other questions, we're going to thank Sylvia and Lori for their time today. It was really helpful for our group as we think about becoming stronger telegenetics providers. As a reminder to everyone, the recorded webinar, a version of the slides and meeting notes will be posted in Basecamp in the coming weeks, and feel free to contact me with any questions. And thank you to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.